Well, good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Sonia Hines, and I am the director, owner of Chesapeake Beach Professional Seminars. And today we have a training on effective parent strategies. Let me share my screen. Okay. So this is me. I am a registered nurse psychotherapist and a registered play therapist supervisor, and I'm located in Chesapeake Beach, and I have Chesapeake Beach Professional Seminars. I have a counseling center called Barstow Acres Children's Centers, a 501c3 nonprofit. These are my websites. You can visit my website. Okay, so let's get started. So these are some adages. The first one is, of course, a Bible verse. It says, train up the child in the way it should grow. And when it is old, how it should go, and when it is old, it will not depart from it. But we're all familiar with that one. And then, but we also know that no matter what we do and how hard we work, children have a mind of their own. And someone said, we are in charge of our children. We are not in control of them. So that when the children are in our charge, we do the best that we can to guide them and to provide for them and to be good role models to teach them. But again, we're not in control. We cannot control what they do. We can only be in charge and provide them with what they need. So today we're going to talk about what you as parents can do to help your children be the best that they can be. And Roy Bennett said, you cannot change anyone, but you can be the reason they change. And I really like that because it's true. We can't control people. We cannot change them, but we can give them what they need and help them to be aware of how they are in the world and give them tools to make good choices. Okay, so anybody has any more thoughts about that later on, please share them with me. So we need to engage parents as partners. When we are working with parents, we need to know that we need to give parents permission to not be perfect. And I'm sure there are several parents, probably parents here listening to this presentation, and probably some mental health professionals or parent workers. But we always, when I work with parents, I remind them that, we're not perfect, and parents did not come with a training manual, a guide. And we parent out of what we know and how we were parented. And so Maya Angelou, excuse me, Maya Angelou said, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, you do better. So parents in the beginning may not have known any better and have done things that may have been harmful to children. I think we've all been there and made mistakes as parents. But as we grow and learn and mature, we get strategies. And so it's our responsibility to implement those changes. We need to notice what children are doing right and build on their strengths. And we'll talk more about that later. All right, so I came up with a formula for effective parenting. And these are some things that I have come up with. And if you have other ideas, please share them. But parents need to have some knowledge of child development. We don't need a big full, college course on child development, but I think it's a good idea to know what the development milestones are throughout the years that children need to accomplish. We need to know developmentally what children are capable of based on their age and level of development, because sometimes we expect too much from children, and we punish children for things that they do wrong when they may not have the capability to do otherwise, because they need to be taught. So some knowledge of child development is really important. I have to tell you that there is a parent that was observed in the grocery store. In grocery stores, you get a lot of information as you observe children and parent interaction. But this parent was in a grocery store and she had a 2-year-old in the grocery basket. And every time the child would approach produce or items the child would touch, as 2-year-olds did. The parent had a ruler in her purse. She opened the purse and hit the child on the knuckles with the ruler. Don't touch, don't touch. But what the parent failed to understand is that 2-year-olds, that's what they do. They touch. That's how they learn. That's how they make sense of their environment, by touching, tasting, smelling, using their 5 senses. So what the parent needed to be proactive and do is to bring a fidget, bring some small toy that the child could play with or have while sitting in the grocery basket, and then not put the child close to anything that they could touch. So we need to manipulate the environment as opposed to punishing the child. And so these are things that sometimes parents are not aware of. The parent was a really good person. She wanted her child to be respectful and she wanted to discipline her child, but it was expecting too much of a 2-year-old. We need to have knowledge of, so let me just go to the next slide. We need to have knowledge of our own temperament and the child's temperament. We need to have knowledge of our past experience and how it affects the way we parent. Because parents use what they know. We go by how our parents parented us. What we do a lot of times is we say, if a parent was abused as a child, the parent might say something like, I'll never do that to my child. I'll never. And what happens is that we do the exact same thing or the extreme opposite. And so we need to be really careful of and catch ourselves, because that's what statistically, that's what happens. Children need rules and expectations. They need to be reasonable. They need to have reasonable consequences. We need to use encouragement versus discouragement. We need to have family time. We need to have affirmations, and we need to be consistent and predictable in the way we parent. So I'm going to go through these in a little bit more detail on the next slide. So parenting styles, we need to look at how the various parenting styles. The authoritarian parent is the one that's strict, do it because I said so. Then we have the permissive parent that leaves it up to the child. Then we have the authoritative parent that listens to the child, but the child has input, but the parents decide. Then we have the neglectful parent that's not attentive to the child's needs. So the authoritative parent is the one that you really want to be, as opposed to authoritarian. And how do you distinguish which one is which? Because they're similar, authoritarian and authoritative. And I remember by the V. The V means the child has a vote. So that's how I distinguish the two. So you can decide which parent you are. We know that the authoritative parent gets the best results, because if you're too strict, the child focuses on you. You're mean, the child becomes resentful, and you lose that child. And we know that permissive and neglectful is basically is destructive to the child. And so we need to be authoritative. So it's freedom, but within limits and being reasonable. So we said that we need to have rules and consequences. This is an example of rules. And I always go over rules with the parents. And I usually ask parents, what are the rules in your home? And if the parents are not clear about the rules, then the children are not clear about the rules. So you're going to have chaos and confusion, right? So I ask parents so I go over, I just make a suggestion as to what rules could be included. The first one is respect self and others. You definitely want respect. I tell parents that the rules are not only for the child, but it's also for the parents. Parents need to model the behaviors that they want for their children. And so it's old school to say that children should do as I say and not as I do. That's old school. We need to, and it's also hypocritical. So we need to model the behaviors that we want. So the name calling, the yelling, and the physical abuse is really destructive and hurtful to children. So another word could be, back talk is not permitted, sassy mouth, arguing with adults, do what you're told the first time. I hear parents say, I told him 10 times to put away his shoes or what have you. But you shouldn't have to do that 10 times. You need to approach children in a way that they do what they're told the first time. And we all know that that's a work in progress, right? So we want to give a demand. Don't wait till the child is sitting in front of the TV or starting the video game to tell them to get up and do, because you're going to have a battle, right? Do it before they start, at the end, or ask them to take a break. Always give children transitional time. In 15 minutes, I would like you to do XYZ, right? Because you wouldn't ask your boss for time off if they're rushing on their way to the airport on vacation, right? So you want to time it. Set up the scenario where children will listen, use eye contact. Don't be on the second floor of the house and yell downstairs, throw out the trash. You want to have eye contact, just to see the child face to face and ask them to do, and stand there until they initiate the task, right? While playing in the house is not permitted. So, running and jumping and things like that. You want the child to respect the household. You want children to ask permission before making major decisions. Some children can open up the door and go outside and play and not ask permission. Some children can open up the pantry and eat up the snacks. But whatever it is, you want to, that's showing respect. That's teaching children to ask permission. You want children to tell the truth, and especially not keep secrets, particularly about their safety. And you want children to play nicely with siblings without fighting. You want them to do their chores. You want them to contribute to others. So it's important to teach children empathy. We teach children empathy. We teach children responsibility by giving them reasonable chores and expecting them to be helpful. So for younger children that cannot read, you want to use pictures, right? So if you have a child in daycare, you know that they have rules as well. For little kids, the chart should be within eye contact, not way up where they can't see it. So you want children to use their listening ears. You want them to, the hands are not for hitting. Teeth are not for biting, feet are not for kicking. There's actually a little children's book that explains, hands are not for hitting. So when you hit a child with spanking and you're telling them their hands are not for hitting, you're contradicting yourself, right? Because the children fight, they hit, and you want them to be able to use their words, not their hands or feet. And then you want children to clean up after themselves. And you want children to get along and to play nicely with siblings. So if you have these photos, pictures of what you want them to do and have it in a strategic place at home, then you're teaching children good values and helping to shape their behaviors. So I wonder if there are any questions so far. All right, so we're going into, let's see, let me go back up. So child development. So let's talk a little bit about temperament. So there are basically 3 types of temperament. There's a difficult temperament, slow to warm up, and easy. Some children have a very difficult temperament, meaning that there's sort of like feisty and in your face. Some kids are controlling and have very high energy. Okay, and so these are some of these kids have ADHD. Some of these kids are just have high energy and strong-willed. That's what I was looking for. Some of these children you have the strong-willed child, and then you have some children that are slow to warm up, children that are shy, children that have some anxiety, and children that cling to parents, have separation anxiety. and slow to warm up. And this includes sometimes children with selective mutism. Some children have selective mutism that is confused with shyness. And then you have some kids that nothing bothers them. They have a very easy temperament and easy to get along, and they can go with the flow. So that knowing your child's temperament and knowing your temperament. So what happens is that a lot of times parents want children to conform to their temperament and try to force the child to their temperament. So we need to learn the child's temperament and allow them to be who they are, but within reason, right? So that if I am a person that's slow to warm up and my child is someone with high energy, I need to be able to find ways to relate to his high energy as opposed to trying to make that child change in terms to conform with my temperament. So we have to learn that dance, that give and take between the child and the parent. So that's just something to consider. Okay. Knowledge of past experiences of affect. So knowing some parents grew up in abusive households, they grow up with one parent. And so a lot of times that's passed on to how they parent their child. So hopefully they've gotten so it's important to get counseling and to in order to heal from the past so that you don't carry those on to your children. So then we talked about rules and expectations. And so let's talk about consequences. So let's go back to the other slides. So before we talk about Adler, let's talk about, let's talk about consequences. So what are so consequences? Consequences, when a child misbehaves, they need to have consequences, but consequences need to come before you institute the consequences. Children need to know what the consequences are for their behavior. And consequences need to be reasonable, they need to be respectful, and they need to be related to the infraction. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. All right, so let's talk about Adlerian parenting style. This is the type of parenting style that I use in my practice. And when parents come to me, I am big on parenting. I don't do the parenting classes as I did before because parents don't come. So what I do is when they bring their child, I see the child in therapy and I have the parents sit in a room with some videos so that parents can get some training in parenting as well if they need it. Some parents already are equipped with good strategies and they're great parents, they don't need it. And some parents need some basic parenting strategies. I tell parents it's not fair to drop the child off for therapy while they go shopping or run errands, that everybody in the household contribute to how the child is. Everybody needs to participate in the solution as well. So I do a lot of parent training in addition to individual therapy. And sometimes we do the family therapy. So Adler was a psychiatrist and was born in Austria. And he said, man is a social being. And our main desire is to belong, to find our place in relationship. I saw a client today who's very depressed because her friends left her out of a social situation. She thought that she was in the group and they didn't invite her. So she was very sad and was feeling suicidal. So our main desire, as Adler said, he was right. Our main desire is to belong and to find our place in relationships. We want to feel like I'm worthy, people care about me, and there's a place for me in the social environment. The goal is always to find one's place to belong. So when a child is misbehaving, when a child is not doing what they're supposed to, it's always in some way because the child is trying to find their place in the relationship. They're trying to find their place in the family, and their goal is to belong. Okay. If you're working with, let's say, if you have a child that's adopted, the child might have behavioral problems. The child is trying to find their place. They're trying to belong. Your own children, you can always go back to that. So Adler said that all behavior is purposeful and therefore children act out for a reason. In order to understand the behavior, you must know the goal. What is the child's goal with the misbehavior? What are they trying to achieve? The child's perception is not always reality. What the child wants to achieve may not always be real. So Adler, uh, Rudolf Dreikurs, when Adler died, uh, Rudolf, Rudolf Dreikurs expanded on Adler's theory, and he applied these concepts to children. And if you've ever heard of Active Parenting Now, the series, it's based on Adlerian play therapy. And then we have The Crucial Seeds by two psychologists, which I'll explain here. So again, all behavior has meaning. And in order to find out the meaning of the child's misbehavior, we need to look, this is useful to help us figure out why it is the child is misbehaving. So these are the goals, these are the mistaken goals of behavior. Children might misbehave because they want attention. And so it's a mistaken goal because by acting out, I can get attention. Children want power and control, they want revenge, and they want avoidance. So these are mistaken goals. But the two psychologists said that what children, this is a mistaken goal, but what they really want is the crucial C's. This is what children really need, and this is what they think they need. So what children need in relationships is that they need to be able to connect. We all want to connect in a way that's meaningful. But in order to connect, children seek negative attention. They want your attention. They want to feel like I'm worthy. All kids want to feel capable. And so children try to be capable by vying for power and control. All kids need to feel like they count, I matter, and they do it by seeking revenge. All kid wants courage, and they do it by avoidance. So let me give you some examples so that it makes sense. Excuse me. So that, so if I want attention, so I was working in a daycare center doing some consulting, and I was asked to observe the interaction between the teacher and the child. And so the child was misbehaving. The child was eating their lunch. And the child said to the teacher, Miss Smith, I'm eating my peas. The child wanted some attention because he didn't have a good connection with the teacher. He wanted the teacher to pay attention to him. So instead of the teacher saying, yes, Johnny, I see you're eating your peas. Good job, thumbs up. The teacher ignored the child. And so the teacher did not pick up on the child needing some positive attention. But if the child took the table and turned it over, I bet you the child would get a lot of attention. So capable. One way to help children to be capable is to give them chores, give them ways to succeed, give them some responsibility. So a parent complained that the child kept nagging her about wanting a glass of milk, wanting juice, something out of the refrigerator. And so the child was misbehaving. So I told the parent what she could do is get one of those little measuring cups, pour a serving of milk or juice, and then have the child reach into the refrigerator to get it. So the child felt capable, and the child wasn't really vying for power and control and acting out with the parent. Children need to feel I can do, I'm capable. And the parent tried it, and it really helped. Another example was I was working in a after school program, and dad came to pick up his daughter. And so when the father arrived, the child was outside the building, and she was doing jump rope. And every time she wanted to show her father how she could show off her jump rope skills. And every time she tried to jump in, it would get all fouled up. And so she got mad at herself. She went into the building to get her jacket, and she never came out of the building. So the father and I went into the building to see what was up. And the daughter was hiding behind a couch. And she did that because she did not feel capable, and power and control because the father couldn't get her out from behind the couch she was hiding. And so what she really needed, so the father started to take off his belt. And I said, sir, please put your belt back on. What your daughter needs is a hug. And she needs to know that it's okay that she was not able to show you that she could do the jump rope. So he had thought it was defiance, but she wanted to show him how capable she was. And count. Kids wanted to feel like they matter. When parents get separated and divorced, it's very difficult for children. A lot of times parents don't talk it over with their children. They say it's none of their business. They don't know what to say, so they don't say anything. And then suddenly dad is out of the house and I'm visiting dad on weekends, so the child rebels because I don't seem to matter. Nobody explained anything to me. Nobody included me on anything I didn't know. And all kids need to have courage. Some children use avoidance. They would say, I don't know, I don't remember, I can't do it. We need to give them opportunities to encourage them so that they have the courage. And so we never do for a child what they can do for themselves, because a child that lacks courage, what they want to do is to convince the parents that they, to do for them what they can do for themselves. And if you have children with disabilities, the inclination is always, or a lot of times, shouldn't say always, but there are times when the inclination is, I will do it for my child because he has a disability. I had a parent that I was working with. The mother would get down on her hands and knees and tie her son's shoelaces. The child was 10 years old, and she would do that every day. And when I asked her about that, because certainly the child could learn to tie his own shoelaces, the mother said she did not want her child to leave the house looking all disheveled because she did not want her child to be teased. And I said, well, you can't do that all his life. You need to teach him some self-sufficiency. So this is a really good chart to have because it really explains the crucial C's. And so this is not something that I'm going to read to you, but so over here is the negative goals, and over here are the crucial C's. Oh, let me go back. And so you can see the child's negative goal is attention, and the child wants to belong. The crucial C's connect. So power is capable, revenge is count, avoidance is courage. So this is a really very helpful resource and model to follow. This is a visual example of the crucial C's. So this is a mom that's teaching her son how to fish already, or not necessarily teaching, but to appreciate that this is how you do it, and this is what we do, starting from a young age. And this young lady has, she's very capable, and she has a lot of courage. She has 2 parakeets, and she has a monkey, some sort of a monkey species on her head. So this child is very much regulated as she holds this stick. And so I thought these were good examples. So the crucial C's reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. This Dorothy. So we have Dorothy, we have the Tin Man, the lion, and the scarecrow. So I wonder if I could get some feedback from the audience. So Dorothy, which crucial C's will be Dorothy if you have connect, capable, count, and courage? Dorothy would be which one? So any feedback from the audience?
Nobody's saying anything.
Or in chat? Okay. All right, so I'll keep going. I'll go back to my. So I did this presentation some time ago, and okay. And so someone said the crucial C's remind me of the main characters of the Wizard of Oz. And I said, well, you're right. So Dorothy didn't feel like she connected in Kansas. She was having some problems and didn't connect with her aunt And so she was taken up by the was it the hurricane? Ended up, where she did end up. But so it was the connect for her. The Tin Man, remember the Tin Man, they were going to see the wizard because they needed some attributes. But Dorothy, and then the Tin Man wanted a brain. No, he wanted a heart. And but he was the most caring person and sensitive person in the group, so they didn't really need a heart. And the lion needed courage, and then the scarecrow needed a brain. Um, but all of these characters had what they needed. They didn't know. So children have what they need. Parents need to help bring it out in them, right? To cultivate it. So Dorothy needed she needed to connect, but Dorothy had the red shoes. She didn't need to go to see the wizard. All she needed to do was to click her shoes. The Tin Man didn't need a heart because he was the most compassionate person. The lion was needed courage, but he did a lot of courageous things because courage is not the lack of fear, but is what you do in spite of fear. And the scarecrow needed a brain, but he was very intelligent, so he didn't really need a brain. Okay. All right, so let's go to the next. So Toni Morrison, the great author and poet, she's deceased now, but she said something that was so inspiring. And she says, what she said was, do your face light up? Children want to feel like that they count. They want to connect and they want to feel capable. So she said, when a child walks into the room, your face should light up. The child wants to see your face light up. But what we do a lot of times is notice what's wrong. Oh, you have dirt on your shoes, or look at your hair, or the gymnast Biles, Simone Biles. When she first succeeded and did really well with the gymnastics, there was criticism about her hair. Like, look at her hair. Why her hair is like that? And even among some African Americans too, they're focusing on her hair. And rather than, how great her skills were, you focus on things that does not matter as much. So this is a clip, like watch this clip. Okay, so let me let it. Oh my gosh. Sorry about that.
I don't think the sound is going to work, Sonia.
Okay, I think I know what. All right, so.
Denominator in the human experience is that everybody just wants to be appreciated or validated. That got clarified in such a way that the hairs on my head rose when I heard Toni Morrison, who was on the show for The Bluest Eye, one of my favorite books of all time. I'd chosen her for book club selection yet again. And she said these words.
It's interesting to see when a kid walks in the room, your child or anybody else's child, does your face light up? And that's what they're looking for. When my children used to walk in the room when they were little, I looked at them to see if they had buckled their trousers, or if their hair was combed, or if their socks were up. And so you think your affection and your deep love is on display because you're caring for them. It's not. When they see you, they see the critical face. What's wrong now? But then if you let your, as I tried from then on, to let your face speak what's in your heart, because when they walked in the room, I was glad to see them. It's just as small as that, you see.
That is what I think is so profound, because that is how you learn what your value is.
That's right.
Not by what the person is saying to you, but what you feel. When I was
That
growing
was
up,
a
my grandmother-
huge aha, bing, 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 light bulb moment for me. Because, first of all, I was thinking about myself growing up, as everybody thinks about themselves when somebody's telling a story. I was thinking about myself growing up and how that didn't happen to me. And when I said those words about that is how you gather what your value is or determine what your value is, I was thinking about, oh, gee, that is why for so many years I was a kid with low self-esteem, because nobody's face lit up or eyes lit up when I entered the space. But where I got that value, that validation, was when I went to church, speaking in the church, or when I went to school.
Okay, so yeah, that's so real, and we could have some dialogue here, but that's true. We want to notice children doing something right. It's also children get attention, lots of attention when they're doing something wrong. So behavior management, how to manage a child's behavior. So this is what not to say. Stop that. No, you can't. Get out of here. Stop being so stupid. That's a dumb thing to say. What's the matter with you? Don't you dare do that. You had better behave. Why can't you be like your brother? I'm sick of that behavior. You make me so mad. I'm going to spank your butt. Right? Sounds familiar. We've all made these mistakes. We've all said these things, right? And so we get more misbehavior. But what we really need to hear, so let's see, let's go back. Okay. So let's see, so what should we say instead? Stop that, no, you can't. We need to say things like, I'm disappointed in your behavior, that's not okay. Let's talk about this, those kinds of things. So we need to rephrase and not use I call it shaming, blaming, complaining, and criticizing. So 4 things that we normally do. We need to get down to the child's level. So here she's pointing at the child. She needs to get, and there's no eye contact. And so it's very punitive. So we need to get down at the child's level and really talk to the child rather than talk at the child. We need to also use, encouragement versus praise. So encouragement, praise is, and I think that when I talk about this, people are really surprised, but we all do this, right? We use praise, and praise is an expression of worth or approval or admiration. So praise is really an opinion or putting our spin on the situation. When we praise children, we teach them to value their self based on other people's evaluation, right? So when a child, let's say your child brings home art, a drawing, and says, Mommy, Daddy, look at my artwork. Look at my artwork. Do you like it? We normally say, Oh, that's nice. That's pretty. Oh, very nice. Put it on the refrigerator. So that's praise. Praise is, oh, you're so pretty. Oh, you're so nice. Praise is, you're so smart. And one of the boys said, Mom, I'm not as smart as you think I am. So what we need is so praise. We need to use what's called Adlerian parenting strategies. They call it encouragement. So encouragement is mentioning what the child did right. Oh, you tied your shoelaces all by yourself. Wow. So instead of good job is vague, but you tied your shoelaces all by yourself. You paid attention, right? That's more valuable. Instead of saying you're so pretty, you could say you really worked hard at selecting the right dress and the right outfit, and wow, look at you. So that's encouragement. Encouragement tells the child what they're doing right. Right? Encouragement tells the child what they're doing right. All right, so that's what we want to focus on, encouragement. The child brings home an artwork and says, Mommy, I don't like my artwork. It looks stupid. I don't like it. We normally say, no, I like it. It's nice. It's really pretty. Put it on the refrigerator, right? So what we're teaching the child is we say to the child, come and talk to me when you're upset. And when the child does, we contradict them. If the child says, I don't like my drawing, it's okay. They don't have to like it, and parents don't have to try to make the child like it or pretend that they like it. You can say, so the appropriate thing to say if the child says, I don't like it, rather than saying, no, it's nice, we need to say something like, we need to acknowledge the child's feelings as opposed to negate them. So the child says, I don't like it. The parents could say, wow, you seem disappointed with your artwork. Seems like maybe it didn't turn out the way you wanted. So would you like to talk about it? Would you like to tell me more about that? Or, what would you like to do about it? Something like that, as opposed to, no, it's nice. Oh, I like it. Because when we do that, we're teaching the child we're teaching the child it's not okay to have, to be disappointed. You want the child to be able to tolerate uncomfortable feelings, right? So we all get disappointed. We do things that we don't like, or sometimes things don't turn out the way we want, and that's okay. We don't have to fix it for the child. We always think that we have to fix things and make the child feel happy. But we have a range of emotions. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be disappointed. And we don't have to fix every situation that there is. So that's encouragement versus praise. And I think that's a good skill to practice, right? So if you have any questions, you can use the chat box, the chat for comments. So encouragement is positive acknowledgement, response to focus. So the other important thing that I forgot to mention was that with encouragement, you want to focus on the effort that the child placed on what they did. You worked really hard on this picture. The child likes it, and you want to use encouragement. You use lots of colors and shapes. Wow, you worked really hard. You paid attention to the instructions, or you created your drawing just the way you wanted, right? And encouragement does not place judgment on the child's work. So you wouldn't say, I like it or I don't like it. There's no judgment about the quality, and you don't compare one child to another. So there's no judgment about the quality. So you wouldn't say like, why did you paint the elephant pink? Elephants aren't pink. You wouldn't say that, right? You just notice. And so that's encouragement. So when I was growing up, I used to get a lot of, you're so cute, you're so pretty, you're so And I used to thrive on feedback from others. I remember getting my first job. I had my first job, and my boss and I went and to do a task that we had to do, and I really wanted his feedback in how I did, and I kept asking like, "What did you think? How did I do?" And then he's got a little bit annoyed, like, "Okay, I already told you." And so, but that's how I was raised, and just constant positives. We mean well, but we need to do it in a different way, right? We don't want children to rely. We want children to feel good about themselves from within, not because other people give us the feedback, but because we feel proud and feel good about what we did. So that's a really important thing to remember. It's really important. Again, this encouragement describes what you see. You want to be specific. You want to focus on improvement, not evaluation. You want to be sincere, use your natural voice, comment on the child's effort, show confidence in the child's ability, comment on effort. Alfred Adler, who created the Adlerian parenting psychology strategist, he said, kids need encouragement like plants need water. So we need to encourage our children. We need to catch them doing something right and not focus so much on what they're doing wrong. Sometimes we just need to ignore negative behavior. We can't always do that because we want to make sure that they're safe and other people are safe. But sometimes we need to ignore negative behavior and focus on the positive. So you want to focus on the behaviors that you want to change. Notice the behaviors that you want to change. Praise begins with I. Good job. I think you did a good job. You are so smart. I think you are smart. I love that picture. Let's put it on the refrigerator. So praise begins with I. Encouragement begins with you. The other problem with you're so smart is that children can grow up to be snobbish, for lack of a better word. They feel that they're better than other kids. I have a kid that I'm working with right now, and he can read fluently, and he's not even in first grade. But then he thinks that other kids that can't read are stupid. So because he's gotten that you're so smart over and over and over and over. And so that can be, and we also need to inform family members about the same thing because family members would do the same thing. And so they all need to learn to not do that. Okay, so let's look at setting limits with children, right? How do you set limits with children? How do we discipline children, right? So this is based on Gary Landritz's model. Gary Landritz is a professional counselor and a registered play therapy supervisor, and he's written many books and done a lot of work in this field. And he came up with the acronym ACT to set limits with children. A, you want to acknowledge the child's feelings or wish. C, communicate the rule. And T, target alternative acceptable behavior. So if a child is acting out, a good example was I did some consulting at a daycare, and we were sitting having lunch with the teacher, and I were sitting having lunch with the children. One of the children did something inappropriate, so the teacher corrected the child's behavior. And the child was 4 years old. To our surprise, the child got up and pointed the finger at the teacher. You bad, mean teacher, bad teacher. And so the teacher was like, oh my gosh. And so was I, right? So the teacher used the ACT model perfectly. The teacher said, Susan, wow, you are angry. You are so angry with me, right? That's acknowledging the child's feelings. You're so angry with me. Oh, what I forgot was the child tried to kick the teacher. She not only got up and said, bad, mean teacher, but she also tried to kick the teacher. So the teacher said, you are so angry with me. You're so angry with me that you're trying to kick me, right? And then, so that's the A. The C was, so the teacher said, in here, we use our words. We do not We do not hit. We do not kick. That's not okay. So you communicate the rule. Your feet are not for kicking, right? I'm not for yelling at, right? And so T was, so if you're upset and angry with me, you can go over to the library and sit for a while, take some deep breaths and calm down. When you're ready, we can talk about it, all right? So it's acknowledging that how the child feels. The teacher didn't say, okay, young lady, you are in trouble. Who do you think you are trying to hit me? That sort of thing that we do, right? That's the first reaction. So we could say, Johnny, you are yelling at me and you try to kick me. You are so upset and angry with me because I told you you couldn't have more cookies, right? And then, so then you communicate the rule. That's not okay. In here, we do not yell at each other and we do not hit each other. That's not okay. And if you're that upset with me, you need to go sit in the corner or sit over here, whatever it is, and take some deep breaths, calm down. And when you're ready, you can come back and we can talk about it. It's not okay to hit me. All right. So that's the ACT rule. All right, so any questions about that, you can put it in the chat, but that's a model that you can, I think giving parents or having a model to follow is helpful, because when we are upset and angry, we say whatever comes to our head because we're so upset and shocked at the child's behavior. So we might say something inappropriate, or resort to hitting or yelling or saying things that we shouldn't say. So if we have a model, it's easier to go by. Okay. Okay, so some other tips before we get into some other things is when we're dealing with children's misbehavior, we want to manage ourselves first. We want to be sure that we take some deep breaths and calm down. The adult takes some deep breaths and calm down, and before they approach the child, because you have to manage yourself first, right? We don't want to discipline children out of anger. So it's so important that you have rules and expectations. The child knows what the expectations are. The child knows what the procedure is, how we operate, and so that hopefully the child will fall out of line, but we have a process to correct the child, right? The child needs to know what the consequences are before we institute consequences. And so the child needs to know what the consequences are before they break the rule. Consequences need to be logical. Consequences so you have natural consequences and you have logical consequences. So a natural consequence would be, if you touch the stove, you're going to get burned, right? If you go out in the rain without your rain gear, you're going to get wet. A good example that I have, I know my son was when he was in high school, he was going to a dance with a friend. So the girl arrived at the house. She was ready to go. She arrived at the house, and so my son was ready to go. And my husband and I had told him, why don't you're going to the dance, why don't you put a jacket on, or change your clothes, put on something a little bit more presentable. No, he decided not to. So when the girl came to the door and she saw him, she said, I'm not going anywhere with you looking like that. And she left, and he was crushed. So that was a natural consequence. We didn't have to say anything more like, I told you so, or that's what you get, So you have natural consequences, right? Then there are logical consequences. If a child takes crayon and marks on the wall, a logical consequence would be, well, then you have to clean it. And I can help you, but it needs to be cleaned up. You make a mess, you clean it up. That's a logical consequence. If you don't come to the dinner table when I call you, when you come, kitchen is closed, you don't get to eat. So But then sometimes there are consequences that you have to agree on, that you have to kind of make up. And so the consequence a lot of times that parents use is taking away the cell phone, taking away the phone. But consequences need to teach. I ask parents not to use the word punishment. I ask them, because we punish criminals, but we discipline children. We use consequences to discipline children. So I ask them to use the word consequence as opposed to punishment, right? And so some consequences, sometimes it's hard to come up with a consequence. So it could be if the child is sending inappropriate pictures to friends and things like that, or people that they don't even know, then the consequence could be that you have your phone privileges taken away, because then the consequence is related to the infraction. Then it teaches the child not to abuse the phone privileges, see? So it needs to be connected in some way. And so that would be probably a reasonable consequence. Okay. Consequences should be reasonable. You don't want to no TV for 6 months. You know, that's like overkill, right? And that's hard to keep up with, because then other people in the family want to watch TV, and that's difficult to enforce. So it needs to be reasonable. It needs to be related to the infraction. It needs to be age appropriate as well. So consequences need to be revealed ahead of time. It needs to be reasonable, and it needs to be related to the infraction. Okay. All right. So another thing that I wanted to talk about is using iMessages. We talked a little bit about it when we talked about the difference between praise and encouragement. But using iMessages when talking to the children is important, as opposed to you. You're pointing, the child is accusatory. But I don't like it when you call me names. I don't like it when you break the curfew. It really bothers me when, as opposed to you is a turn off, and use is accusatory. Another thing that we need to do is teach children how to manage stress. That's one of the most important things that you can do. 2 important things you need to do with children is to teach them empathy by showing them, by being interested in what they're doing. By some parents like to get pets, because pets teach children responsibility. It also teaches them empathy. And empathy is caring about others. So it's important what some parents do is, when children outgrow their clothes and their toys, they might have a yard sale, but they might also give it to maybe children in a homeless shelter, or finding ways to give it to someone that is in need, so that that's a way of showing that you care and empathy. During the holidays, I suggest that parents encourage children to give them a few dollars, let them go to the dollar store or wherever it is, and pick out something for the other parent, so that children appreciate giving as well. So gratitude is something that we don't do well in our culture. And I know myself, I have staff, and I have to really remember to recognize your birthdays and recognize the holidays, and show appreciation. Sometimes I have to remind myself, because gratitude is so important. We all want to feel special, and we need to have an attitude of gratitude. And children, we are in a society where children want me, give me. But children need to be able to realize that adults need to hear I love you. Adults need to get a gift sometimes. Adult needs to have their heart warmed by their children. So we need to teach children gratitude, like writing thank you cards to family members that give them Christmas gifts, things like that. When children earn money or get Christmas money, have them spend some, but open up a bank account, have them put some away for getting a gift for someone else or something that they need. But, you teach children. Children need to be taught all of these things. Children learn by example as well. All right. Teaching children how to manage stress, teaching breathing exercises. Children learn how to manage stress by looking at us parents that smoke or use drugs and drink alcohol. And those are ways that sometimes adults manage stress. And I'm not saying that or criticizing anyone, but sometimes, drinking wine or those kinds of things to relax is certainly things that we do in our society. But if we do it to an extreme or children see us do that all the time, then that's how they're going to manage their stress. Children need to learn deep breathing exercises. They need to learn perhaps listening to some soft music or uplifting music, because some of the music that the children and teens listen to sometimes is not always appropriate. But coloring, adults color too. Writing in your diary, going for a walk with the dog, exercising, talking to a friend, doing some meditation, taking a yoga class, going to the gym. Teach children how to manage stress. And sometimes adults think that children don't experience stress because they're children. Like, what are they stressed out about? They go to school and they see their friends and they play in recess. But children worry about who is going to play with me and who is going to sit next to me, or am I going to be invited to the birthday party, or who's going to pick me for the team. Children deal with stress, and so we need to help children manage their negative self-talk. What do they say to themselves that's negative? Managing their negative self-talk and managing stress. And then there is spirituality, so that most families create a spiritual base for their children and their family. So you want to, whatever that is, teach the values based on your own cultural beliefs. Some families have rituals. We go on Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever it is, involve children in family rituals, celebrate customs as a family, and again, instill an attitude of gratitude, encourage children volunteerism. I had a family of sisters. They were all girls. The father was a very astute man. He made sure that all of his children engaged in volunteerism. I met them at my church, and every one of those girls volunteered in my nonprofit organization. And you know that they volunteered initially, and when the volunteering was over, I was able to hire each one of them part-time to do some consulting work for me. And so when they graduated from high school and they went on to college, they were trying to get into different schools. They used me as references, and they put their volunteerism on their resumes. So they got a lot of mileage out of volunteering at my center. And the father died several years ago, but he made sure that each one of them went to college, got their degree, and went on to get their master's. And now it was 4 girls, and now they have really good government jobs. The father was a very, very smart man. He made sure that they started early with just volunteerism. And they did one of his daughters was an artist, and she did some artwork for me in a children's book that I wrote. And I'll never forget, she was 14, and she did a wonderful job. So having children volunteer, they not worry right now about getting paid, because volunteerism can go a long way. Eventually, you sure want to get paid, but but not looking at the money initially, to looking at giving back and to society. And they've gotten a lot, because eventually I did pay them for some services, and I was there and I gave them glowing remarks to help. One of the girls got into law school. I wrote a glowing a letter for her. So those are things that we can do with our children, whether they have a disability or not. There's so much that we can do, and everyone has a strength. Everyone, there's something that we all can do. All right, so we are in an age where we talk a lot about mindfulness, and mindfulness is being present. Mindfulness is being aware. Mindfulness is using your 5 senses to be connected and grounded and to notice. And mindfulness parenting is being aware of being fully present. I was in an emergency room once, an urgent care. I needed to get something checked out as an urgent care. So we had mom, dad, the baby in a carriage, and they're both on their cell phones. And so you're in an urgent care, something's wrong with the baby. But sometimes, when parents are on their cell phone, like that may be the only time that they get alone. But I mean, it's easy to criticize and to say something like that, but mindfulness is being fully present. So if you think of 5, you have 5, 4, 3, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, or 5 senses. One of the exercises for grounding is to find 5 things that, so where you are right now, 5 things that are, let's say, blue. Look around and find 5 things that are blue. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 things that are blue. Then 4. Touch 4 surfaces. Not only just touch them lightly, but feel the surfaces. 4 different. Some may be hard. Some may be soft, right? Some may be fuzzy, but just appreciate 4 different surfaces. Then 3, just be quiet and silent and listen to 3 different sounds and name them. Sounds that you probably wouldn't have noticed if you weren't paying fully attention. 2 different smells, different scents. You can smell yourself, you can smell your breath, you can smell or what's in the environment. Maybe you didn't take out the trash yet, so you can smell that, whatever it is. And then taste. Maybe in your purse or in your bag or around, sitting around, is a mint. So really exercising your 5 senses to be aware. So be aware of what your child, like Toni Morrison said in the video clip. Notice your child. Notice their facial expression. Notice what they're wearing, whatever condition it is. Notice what they're doing. Listen to them, hear them, touch them. So mindful parenting is really taking away distractions and just being there. Another mindful activity is finding colors on the rainbow. So with the clients, with your child, you can go outside and do a mindfulness walk and look for things that have the same color of the rainbow. I spy something red, I spy something orange, and just go through the colors of the rainbow. Eating an orange mindfully. If you stop and peel an orange and do it mindfully, looking at the outside of the orange, feel it, look at the color of it, feel the ridges and the bumps of it, smelling it, peeling it, looking at the difference between the color of the outside skin and the inside skin of the orange, peeling the orange, and then finally tasting it, closing your eyes and bite down on it. Listen to the sound when you chew it. That's eating an orange mindfully. And then there is TheraPlay activities, blowing bubbles. You can blow a bubble mindfully, blowing a bubble slowly. And the slower you blow it, the bigger it is. And just watch the colors in the with the liquid. And as you blow you can see the prism, and then blow it and watch it fly away. And just stay with it as it rises. Sometimes it rises to the trees or to the sky, or they burst right away. So there are things that you can do that's really mindful and activities with your child. I do this activity with the parent and the child. This is the parent's hand and the child's hand. And I have the parent put the paint on the child's hand and the child put the paint on the parent's hand. So parents, this is a craft and bonding activities. And this was a child that did a lot of hitting. We did hands are not for hitting, they're for hugs. And remind parent to affirm the child. So after my sessions at the end, I always have the child choose one of these. I am lovable, I am worthy, I'm special, I am safe, I'm enough, I am strong. And Band-Aids for healing. Okay, so this is helping parents talk to children about racism. So we've had a lot of racism today, a lot of Black Lives Matters, a lot of talk about racism and equity and equality, and how many parents talk with their children and know how to broach that topic. And as a therapist, I'm African American, and I have a lot of Caucasian clients. And I talk about differences in skin color, because children would bring it up. And I say, I have curly hair, you have straight hair. You wear glasses, I don't. We both have shirts on, I'm wearing some pants, and you don't. So my skin color is darker than yours, mine is brown, yours is pinkish, right? So we're different, but we're different, we look different, but we can do great things together. And if I point out the difference because children would find a way to let you know that they notice that you're different. One girl said to me, she was like 8. She said, Miss Hines, you look like you have hot chocolate poured all over you. And I felt like I was stung by a bee because I was not expecting that. And I said, oh, you notice that my skin color is different than yours. You want me to know that you notice. And that's okay. All right, so we need to come up with ways to do that and let children know that it's okay. We need to also remember that what goes in the bucket, what goes in the well comes out in the bucket. So parents that are not very kind to ethnicity and diversity, children would bring it up and they will talk about it among their peers. So we want to be conscious about that. All right, so this is where I'm going to end today. If you have any thoughts, go ahead and look at the chat to see if there are any questions. I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions, let's see.
I don't see any, Sonia.
Okay, we have people out there. It's been so quiet. And I hope that this was helpful. And you can always send me an email. Let me know if you have any questions. And thank you so much.